Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our first Google Hangout with an esteemed panel of authors. We have with us today the 6 authors that brought you the Sundering novel series. We are very excited to have everybody here together. It's I think the first time that we've all actually been together in this capacity for sure, but it's certainly been a long time since all of you have probably had a chance to sit down and talk to each other as well. So this is a very exciting evening. For those of you who are watching us, we invite you to ask questions, to submit them throughout the broadcast, and we're happy to get to as many of those as we possibly can. We have a special guest with us helping tonight. That's Nate Cunningham, who is a Google Hangout expert and has been instrumental in bringing all of us together. Thank you, Nate, for your help. I'd like to introduce you to a man who needs no introduction, I'm sure, but R.A. Salvatore is here. He's going to lead us in this fascinating discussion. Bob, I'm going to hand it to you, and perhaps you could introduce us to all of the other people who we are hanging out with tonight.
Thanks. Hello everyone. Thanks for coming in and joining us. First, I'll introduce you to Shelley Mazanoble, who was just talking there. She's my favorite.
I forgot to introduce us.
You see a purple shoulder in your screen. That's my friend Sarah, Easterly, who puts me on planes and makes me go places. She's really mean, so I'm really good at that. But anyway, I'm really happy to be here. We're here with some of my favorite people in the world, some dear friends and fellow authors. And guys, when I introduce you, and gal, when I introduce you, put up your hand and let people know I'm talking about you. We'll go in order from the Sundering, so I'll start with an old friend who finished up the War of the Spider Queen with me in those old days. That's my old friend, Mr. Paul Kemp, who is the author of The Godborn.
Hi, Paul.
Now we go to the youngest of the authors by far, someone whose work I just became acquainted with recently, and I can't put it down. I really love her characterizations, and she just gets into people's hearts and heads as well as anyone I've ever seen. The author of The Adversary, Erin Evans.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Erin.
Now another dear old friend of mine who opened up the War of the Spider Queen, and I've known him for many years, and it's always a pleasure. Richard Lee Byers, the author of The Reaver.
Hello.
And now we come to two of the older friends, go way back. I'm thrilled that this guy's back in the realms with us. Loved working with him back in the late '80s. That's how far back we go. The author of The Sentinel, Mr. Troy Denning. Wave. Smile.
Hi, Troy.
Hi.
And of course, old Elminster himself, my dear friend, the guy who started this all when he was about 6 years old, author of The Herald and 900 million other books like me, Mr. Ed Greenwood.
Hi.
Hi, Ed.
Hello.
So that's the batting order. I'm going to open this up by, I was thinking about the Sundering, and I remember when Ed and I first started talking about this, which was many years ago, not the Sundering specifically, but things we really wanted to make sure came back or stayed with the realms. And what the Sundering has meant to me, and what the companions, writing the companions has meant to me, was the ability to go back and in the midst of this massive chaos and craziness, with power voids and creatures of all levels, right up to the gods, fighting for power to fill those voids, I wanted to make sure that there was hope back in the realms. That was the big thing for me. Make sure that the hero could still matter and be a part of it all. So that's my take on what the Sundering's all about in a very short blurb there, if you will. And let's go in order. I'm going to start with Paul Kemp. Paul, okay, when you're done telling us what the Sundering means to you and what it meant to do the Godborn, why don't you throw it to Erin?
Okay. So I'm going to echo something that you said, Bob, because I'm sort of I guess I'm kind of a theme guy, and for me, sort of the realms is this rich, highly detailed world with this elaborate history, and that's all awesome, and I love all of that. But the underlying bedrock of the setting to me has always been its sense of optimism, this sense of underlying hope. Like when I think of the realms, like if you say to me Forgotten Realms, I don't think about Dark Lords and I don't think about, dragons laying waste to realms so much. All those things happen. But I think more of like, a hedge wizard at a mage fair on a sunny day in Shadowdale doing some trivial feat of magic that makes kids laugh. So, the realms for me has always been this place where, yeah, lots of grim things happen, lots of horrible things happen, but light always has its day. So there's this underlying bedrock of hope in the place, and that optimism for me kind of gave it this sense of wonder. Those two things were paired for me. The sort of the hope, the optimism, and then the sense of wonder. And to the extent we got away from that at all, to the extent we diminished on the side of optimism, it kind of diminished the wonder for me a little bit too. So my hope and my sort of attempt with the Godborn was to tell a kind of ultimately hopeful story, optimistic story, which I guess sounds weird as I think about it, since, 95% of the book takes place in literal darkness or metaphorical darkness. But at the end of the day, it is an optimistic book, and light has its day. So that's really what I was trying to do, and that's what it meant to me. So now, let me throw it over to the wonderful Erin Evans.
So I'm the one who came up in 4th edition. All of my books have been set in the 4th edition, so I was a little attached to parts of it. But for me, when writing in that part of the setting, I have to echo exactly what Paul and Bob said. The world seems like it's this horrible dark place with all these threats, but the heroes in there are the ones who make the difference, right? It's rebuilding after a catastrophe. It's bringing your city back. Neverwinter coming out of the ashes. And so the Sundering just sort of was a larger scale, is a larger scale version of that. It's saying, you can make a difference even when the chips are down. And for me, in the adversary, there's a lot working against the characters. They're right up against Char and every horrible thing she, embodies. But you can still make a difference. Even if you can't defeat the goddess of loss in one book. You're still doing something, and that's why we try. That's why you keep pushing. That's why there is hope. So I feel like I'm just repeating, but it's true. Your turn, Richard.
Okay. To me, the Sundering was about restoring elements of the classic realms that a lot of people felt had been mislaid, and my mandate for my part of the Sundering was to restore the geography around the Sea of Fallen Stars and to turn the Sun God back into Lathander, because everyone had belatedly realized he was more fun than a Minotaur. So then my chore was, okay, well, if I do all that, how do I put it in the context of a kick-ass sword and sorcery novel that will be fun to read? So I came up with a story of pirates and religious war and evildoers from Thay, because I'm really big on evildoers from Thay, and then mixed in the same theme that people have alluded to before, which is that it's a story of hope and rebirth and new beginnings, where I have some key characters who start out very bad and thinking that's the only way they can be, and then as the story unfolds, they find out they have another choice they can make. And with that, I'll throw it over to Troy.
Well, my goal in the Sundering was to get rid of the underchasm. That was one of the kind of the plot points that they said we should make sure happen. And so I had to construct the story around, coming up with a story that would do that, and I was just thrilled to do it because I was given the part of the story where the gods are putting their final push on, they're making their last final plays, and that was a lot of fun to do, and it allowed me a chance to return to the Forgotten Realms, something that I had always loved about it, and that was just the sense of it being a high adventure, where you have characters that are are big and heroic and noble, taking horrible risks and facing down, gods and villains that they should have no hope of surviving. So it was a real pleasure to come back to that. And with that, I will pass it off to Ed, who wrapped her all up and somehow managed to tie it all off after we left him with so many loose ends.
Well, yeah, that wasn't easy. In the best of all possible worlds, I would have been able to read everybody's finished novel before I wrote The Herald, the last of the 6 books. That couldn't happen because of the timing of everything. So I couldn't tie off every last detail. So I thought, so what do I do? I thought, okay, the best thing to do is to do what we've done in all of these books. Zero in on a few characters and show us how it feels to be them going through the events of the Sundering. And of course, in my case, they had to be some pretty powerful characters because it had to be that moment where we did indeed wrap everything up. So big threats had to blow up. And I'm the guy who never blows anything up in the realms. So it was fun to do. Thank you. And now, back to you, Bob.
Thanks, Ed.
I wanted to just quickly interrupt and say that we have Revan and Drew from Dungeon Crawlers Radio who joined us while you all were talking.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
We're
Hey,
glad.
guys. I'll be talking to you in a couple of days.
Yep.
All right, let's go one more round. We'll go the same order. I think makes sense because you know who'll be following you, and we don't want to talk over each other, which is really easy to do in the chat like this. So, just an easy little question here.
Oh,
Think
yeah.
back to the
set
book.
me up that way.
No. This is really going to be easy. Think back to the book, and what was your favorite scene to write in the book?
Well, that actually is really easy.
Let me start. Let me start.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For me, I was thinking about this all day, and the one character in the companions who just wouldn't sit down and stay out of the way was Spider Paraffin, my halfling, and I just fell in love with him through the book. And there was one scene in there when he was training with kind of one of the apprentice assassins named Danola Topolino, and he kind of fell in love with her. And finally, it became obvious that she was kind of playing the same game with him. So they were fighting, and it became a game between them. And if he could score a hit on her, he was going to get a kiss. And that scene, I think, I just keep going back to it because when I think about the Sundering and the darkness and the power voids and the fights and all the rest of it, it's that kind of humor, love, and just happiness that I think always distinguished the Forgotten Realms for me. It's what I've loved about the realms from the very beginning. So that was my favorite scene. And now, Paul, you're up.
Now I can talk. And Bob, you're doing such a good job of moderating. I forgot that you've sold a zillion books and might actually have something to say on that subject. I'm sorry. This actually is an easy one for me, but I don't have all that philosophical underpinning that you just had. So when I wrote The Godborn, I was working with a new editor with whom I'd never worked before and really didn't know what to expect. And he was, sort of reserved compared to what I'm used to. So, the comments would be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Or there'd be, the sort of usual editorial fixes. But there's a scene towards the end of the book when Drasic Riven lures Mephistopheles to the Shadow Plane to face off against him. And their battle essentially goes on for an entire chapter with Riven and his forces from the Shadowfell and Mephistopheles and the army that he brought with him from Hell. And at the end of that, I thought that was just, when I wrote it, it was, sort of one of those heart-pumping action scenes you write. And the editor's note at the end, this was the only time that he got animated at all. He just said, "Wow!" exclamation point. And that was my favorite one by far. Aaron.
I'm having a tough time thinking of one. I think there's a scene where Dahl encounters some kids in the internment camp, like little mini chosen, and I like that because I don't get to usually write about kids. I don't get to do kids' voices. And at the time, like I actually ended up writing it twice, but they were, I don't know, they were fun and it was different. But I also really love, there's a scene where Farida escapes her room by jumping out the window and then teleporting and then falling down a floor, and she's just like so relieved that it worked. And it's the kind of sort of crazy plan she makes when the chips are down, and it like she just like sits there on the floor laughing, and I'm like, this, it feels like her coming back into herself from the beginning. And I like that part too. I like the part where she defeats Rand at the end because he's had it coming for 2 books. I don't know. I like that book a lot. It turned out nice. Okay, Richard.
Okay, I like a lot of the scenes in my book, I will immodestly say. But I guess the moment that I like the best is at the conclusion of the gigantic naval battle, which is the finale. I bring my hero and my villain face to face on the deck of a ship, and each of them is the champion of one of the rival deities. But the villain is the chosen of Umberlee, whereas the hero is the pirate who has just kind of fallen into being, a knight in the service of Lathander, so to speak. And the villain kind of tries to, intimidate him. It's like, I'm a chosen. What choice do you have? And the hero says, who has long hated the villain, and vice versa, it says, this isn't about the gods anymore. This is about you and me finally having it out. And that's just such a, to me, that's just such a perfect moment for him. And then they fight, and with probably predictable results, but it's a very nice good guy versus bad guy moment in the tradition of like Robin Hood fighting the Sheriff of Nottingham in the Errol Flynn movie, or one of those. And I'll pass it on to Troy.
I think one of my favorite moments, and I think Richard's right in talking about the favorite moments rather than scenes, at least for me, because I tend to just have that little twist that in a scene is what I really kind of love. And one of my favorite ones occurred early in the Sentinel when Cleef is standing alone against, I don't know, a couple dozen Shadowvar who are trying to get across this bridge to capture Joel and Malik. And he's just standing there and he's fighting them. He can't quite understand how he's holding them all off, but he's doing it. And then all of a sudden, an arrow comes over his shoulder and takes one out. And he looks back and sees Princess Arietta. She's not a princess anymore, she's a lady. Sees Arietta coming up behind him with an arrow. He looks at him like, what? You wanted to kill all of them yourself? And, I think that did a good job of capturing both her personality and Cleef's, and that was one of the little gems that I enjoyed writing. And I will pass it off to Ed now.
And I have to echo what Bob said earlier. It's the love, the friendship, it's those moments of tenderness, and that makes it for me. So after the huge battles going on, my favorite scene was the end scene in Storm's kitchen, because we get to see a lot of people that we usually see in crisis, usually see hurling spells and yelling things, and pulling out swords and so on. We got to see them all just hanging out, relaxing, and getting fed, and hanging out in the kitchen together. And that's something that I think in our lives we don't get enough of, and I think it's something that we needed to have at the end of the entire series, to not just bring back hope to the realms, to show you that life goes on, everyday life goes on, and people can take their moments of pleasure. And with that, back to you, Bob.
Do we want to jump to some questions?
Yes,
Kelly?
I was going to say we have some questions that have come in. There's kind of a theme going on here. For one question that I have, we're wondering if you guys are actually talking to us from the rooms in which you do your writing from, because Aaron, your room looks gorgeous wherever that is.
This is my, this is actually a shed that's in our backyard.
Oh, very
That's my desk over there. I'm sitting at my husband's desk because it's a mess and there's a bunch of like programming stuff here, which might be secret, might be not. It looks like hieroglyphics to me. That's not my jam. But yeah, so that's
Well,
where
this is
I
the same
see
stuff.
my map of food over there, my motivational poster on that side, all my source books. My half of the whiteboard is over there, but it also has secret stuff on it right now.
It is. It's a beautiful room.
Thank you.
Are the rest of you talking from where you do most of your writing?
I'm in a jail cell.
Well, that's where you do most of your writing.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I'm in my kitchen, which is torn apart because we're remodeling the house. I don't have a camera on my desktop, so I'm using my laptop. And if I went up there, it wouldn't have anything of a signal right now. So, nope, I'm just standing here in the kitchen.
Well, if you need help picking out countertops or cabinets, we could probably all assist you with that too.
Oh, I've actually got my laptop sitting on a cabinet sample. And
Nice.
there's a countertop next to it and some floor next to that.
That's awesome. A little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
Paul, you look like you're in a nice office there.
I am in my library in our house, surrounded by great fiction and some fantasy-themed sculptures my father-in-law has got me over the years. I do a lot of writing in here, though, because I typically do my writing at work on lunch.
Oh, I'm sure at lunch, not on company time.
Exactly.
And what about you, Troy? I think books.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in my office, looking at my main monitor, and then because my main monitor doesn't have a camera on it, the laptop that actually has a camera is set it off to the side. But, yeah, this is where my little corner in the basement where I work.
Oh, nice.
So we get you in profile, Troy. You look like Lincoln on the penny. It's like you're posed for a coin.
I kind of. What about you, Richard? Where are you doing?
I am in the room where I do my writing, and I've made some effort to disguise all the mess and the filth and the random pieces of broken fencing equipment.
It looks like a nice color there. Approve of that.
Yeah, the doorway's neat.
Yep. And Ed, I can't imagine. What room are you in?
I'm in what we call the blue room, which is
okay.
Because I live in an ancient farmhouse, and where I write is right near the road. So you'd be hearing large trucks run their air brakes down the hill, dogs barking, cattle lowing, and all the general noises of farms.
Typical office noises, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm at the other end of the house in the deep woods. The house is like half a mile long, but it's very thin. So I'm here in a place that's slightly less crazy than the place I write in. And the cat is trying to turn it as crazy as she can.
Oh, well, that's what cats do, right? So here's a question from someone, and you're all welcome to answer this, but I think maybe Aaron, because Bob pegged you as being the youngest writer. So this is a question from Mitchell, who is asking for advice from a person who is just beginning down this world of writing. When you were just starting out, what motivated you to get that first work on the table? That's a really good question for probably anyone who's in a creative field.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one of those things that I don't remember what kept me going, because I know it's hard. You just have to keep writing even when it's terrible. And I've used that technique a lot when I hit kind of like a writer's block point. I will sit down and just make myself write something as crappily as possible. Just the stupidest, most cliche junk you can get out, because then you know when you sit down and you go back and you do it again, it's going to be better. It has to. And I have a program called Write or Die, which basically you start typing, you set it for a number of words or amount of time, and if you stop, it'll punish you. Either you can set it very gentle and it will have a little pop-up screen that says, hey, you need to keep writing, or it'll play an annoying noise, or if you're like me, you put it on the maximum, put it on a kamikaze level. If you stop typing, it starts deleting what you wrote. So you have to keep going.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's
hardcore.
That's how I get these big books done. But, you know, you have to write what you love, I think. You have to write something that you care about because you do spend so much time with it. So, you know, in starting out, I feel like I went through a lot of different projects trying to find one that really I could be passionate enough about to get all of that down. But yeah, when you're starting out, I feel like don't forget you're practicing. You have to practice like anything else. I think we kind of get this idea that writers just sort of like the muse comes like plants the book in your head and then it appears perfectly. It's like no, there's so many false starts. There's so many words you just throw away, and that's fine. You know, you've got to get through that part, and you'll get to the point where it comes a lot easier.
And you have worked as an editor?
Yes.
So I imagine, I don't know how you turn off that part of your brain when you're being a writer.
I use the write or die thing.
Oh, okay.
Seriously, I mean, that's part of it, too. Like,
yeah.
you have that editor brain and that writer brain, and I think when you're learning to write, too, that editor brain gets stronger and stronger. Your sort of critical faculties build up, and when they get really strong, it can kind of overwhelm you and you don't get anything done. You just have to make yourself keep going, and that'll, you know, kind of beef up your creative faculties and balance you out a little better. But when you're in that moment where you're, you know, every word's like, oh, that's not good. Oh, I could do better. Oh, this other author writes so much better than I ever will. Making yourself do it, however you need to do that. Just getting words out, and because that's writers write, you know.
That's good advice. Writers write. Does anyone else have any other motivation tactics that they use?
Well, I tell any beginning writer I ever see the same thing. If they ask, and it's a simple line: if you can quit, quit. And if you can't quit, you're a writer. Because I don't think this is a job. I think this is a journey. And if writing is my way of making sense of the world, so I need to write. If I'm not writing, then I'm not asking myself those questions I need to ask, and I'm not maybe finding the answers. I write to know what I know, but didn't know I knew. So for anyone who says, I want to be a writer, what advice? It's simple. If you can quit, quit. Because if you don't love the writing, the business will kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would tell you to finish something. So if you're a new writer and you're full of ideas and piss and vinegar and you're going to take on the world and light the world on fire with your great idea, finish something. That's really the first step, and actually getting something done from beginning to end, and then standing back and looking at it and knowing that you've created something is a really it's a really unique feeling. And if that works for you, then as Bob says, maybe you're a writer, because it is going to be a long road to hoe. It is tough, and you're going to get a lot of rejection, so you need to steel yourself for that. But get something done.
And you should send your manuscripts to Troy.
And why would you want him to do that to me, Bob?
Love you, man.
I thought you were falling asleep there. I just wanted to make sure.
Just checking to make sure you're still with us. So
that woke me up.
We have another question here from Steve, and he is asking a very good question, which I know you can all speak about. How do you coordinate writing a series of books from different authors and have it all come out so well? It would seem to take many meetings. I don't know about this part, but he thought that authors disliked meetings and would rather do a lot of drinking instead. You don't have to speak to
the meeting.
I guess you can
Not mutually exclusive.
multitasking. But I know that you guys have probably talked about this a little bit before, but do you want to speak about how you coordinated this 6-book series all together? Because I want to hear about it.
Can we tell them about the secret summits?
You can talk about the secret summit. You've actually posted videos from the secret summits.
In disguises?
Yes.
You do it. Start.
I have to cross international borders, so maybe I shouldn't say anymore.
You were all here.
Jumping in here.
All right. Well, basically, we start by getting together in a room and saying, we want to tell a story. What's it going to be about? And we start kicking ideas back and forth, and pretty soon somebody says something that excites somebody else, and the enthusiasm begins to build. And before you know it, you're tossing out plot points for each book, or you're saying, well, we're going to have the story structured in such a way. Then you'll divide the story up into separate books, and then start tossing out plot points for each book. And it's a constant process of taking a big whole amorphous mass and just chopping it up into smaller, more distinct building blocks. It's really one of the reasons I wanted to be involved in this project was because collaborating on a big project like this is just so much fun. You would think that there would be instances where you lose energy or you have arguments and stuff, and that really doesn't happen. You just build on each other's energy, and turn up having a lot of fun. So, I don't know if that's too vague, but that's my answer.
I'd agree with that answer. I also said that my secret is that I go first. And they can all pick up the pieces later. No, it's true. And you have to remember that for most of us, this series, even though it was about a change in the realms, didn't come out of the blue. Because, for example, The Companions is the first book of the Sundering, but it also takes place right alongside the book I had written before that, The Last Threshold, and then the sequel to The Companions is Night of the Hunter. So I think for some of us anyway, that we were also continuing the story of our characters, or things that we had left unsaid or unfinished with our own characters. But we got in that room with the authors and the game designers and the brand team and everybody else, and we just started, what do we want for the realms? How do we want to get the realms to come into the next edition of the game that makes sense and brings it back to where it had been before? And I still remember sitting up there around the table and watching Troy up at the whiteboard, because Troy is always at the whiteboard, and just him and Ed just going crazy back and forth about the early days of the realms, trying to inspire the rest of us to understand what we were trying to get back to, and it was really amazing.
And writers do like meetings if they can sit down and chat, because writing is an essentially lonely process, but when you can get together and work on something, you start riffing off each other, the energy level in the room goes up, everybody can get excited, and you can build something that is bigger and better than each of you could do on their own.
So I know that, Nate, you have a question. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, well, that was part of it.
Okay.
I've been wondering for the better part of 2 decades. It's like eating at my soul. I'm like, how do they write in this world that's so vast without crossing over or contradicting each other? And yeah, with the Sundering now, so much more is happening. And well, that explains it. So that's got to be quite a massive undertaking. And you just get everything right in your brainstorming session, and then you just kind of go your own way and take different regions, or if you cross over to something else someone is working on about a certain region, maybe you have to run things by them to make sure it's not going to mess with something they're working on. I guess your meetings is the answer to that.
That's where an editor comes in. And, we had some fantastic editors working on the series, Nina Hess and Fleetwood Robbins, and Susan J. Morris, kind of helped keep all the pieces, because they, they're the ones that read all the books, and they can say, hey, you said this here, but he needs to say this here, so this is how we're going to work it out. And that's part of that job, is kind of keeping the continuity of what's going on straight, and keeping track of who's in what part of the world. My next book is set in Cormyr. The Sentinel is set in Cormyr. They overlap a little bit. So having someone who was, had not just read the book, but had read the book very carefully and looked at all the details and could say, hey, here, double check this page or this chapter against what you want to do, was just invaluable.
So have any of you ever had any times, like Aaron was saying with the editors, how they'll give little notes and say, oh, watch out for this, don't do this here because something else is going on? in the history of your careers in Forgotten Realms, has there ever been a time where there's been like huge red flags or some editor, something an editor has found has caused like a huge slam on the brakes moment, or it's all been just little notes here and there?
I think Bob gonged me on a big thing in War of the Spider Queen, but he probably doesn't remember. I was going to kill a character at that point, and we said, no, we don't want that character to die, so had to adjust. But it actually made the story much better, so it worked out very well.
Yeah, the other thing in War of the Spider Queen, I had to hold Rich Baker back before I wiped out all of Menzo Baranzan because I wanted to go back there someday. Rich was getting a little bloodthirsty. No, to answer your question, Nate, I've spent most of my career in the Forgotten Realms hiding in Menzo Baranzan or the Spirit Soaring or Mithril Hall. I spend my time hiding for many, many years, and they don't want me to do that anymore. So I'm glad we have these summits because it is hard when you're trying to coordinate, now video games, the modules for the game, the new edition of D&D, a whole bunch of authors writing pretty much on the same subject with the Sundering. We're not sharing characters generally, but we're in the, we're telling a story of, it's kind of like, I think of it like World War II, right? We're telling a story of this big event going on in the world and with the characters that we're dealing with and the region we're dealing with. The communication is critical. But I'll go back to a story, and Ed will remember this. Way back, the second book on Forgotten Realms that I wrote, Streams of Silver, I had to have them cross a significant portion of Western Faerun, and they went through this little town called Longsaddle. And at the time, I had the gray box set. And that was pretty much all there was on the realms. And it had a one-paragraph entry on Longsaddle, and all it said was, this town is ruled by an eccentric family of wizards who live in the Ivy Mansion. And so I just did that and I kind of turned the volume up to about 20 and created the Harples. I think it said the Harples in the book, but I created some of the characters of the Harples. And then I called Ed. And I said, hey, Ed, this is what I think of Longsaddle. What do you think? And we just had a great time riffing back and forth for about an hour. Remember that, Ed?
Yes. Yep.
And that was when international calls cost a lot of money.
Yes.
I remember that, too.
Yeah, and the other thing that helps is in the early years, the Realms had a traffic cop. It was a poor, long-suffering TSR staff member. Jeff Grubb was the first one, and there were others after that, Stephen Shen, notably, and that made sure that author A didn't blow up something that author B was already writing about in a product that would come out after author A's product. And I once discussed this with Jeff and Bruce Hurd, who was our acquisitions manager at TSR, who dealt with all freelancers at that. And Bruce described it as the policeman in the middle of the busy intersection with the white gloves and the whistle, when 8 different streets meet at angles, and he's trying to keep the traffic from running over him. And some of the traffic consists of road surfacing equipment that will really roll over him. So if he doesn't remember everything, he will step back smilingly out of the way of one catastrophe he's just prevented and get rolled flat by the other one. And that's how it feels to be me all these years. Because I have to try and remember all the lore with the aid of a lot of really dedicated fans and with all of you guys who work on the realms. And it doesn't hurt to be crazy.
Well,
All right.
thanks. I can die happy now. You've answered 20 years of questions.
Revan and Drew, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So, with everything that's changed, because like Ed was saying, you've got, and Bob was saying, you've got video games, you've got all these different formats that you guys are now having to contend with. Is it a lot more difficult to juggle what you're writing? Because maybe you want to save something for a video game or a comic book or trade paperback or anything like that.
Okay, I'll take that one. You can't hold back.
Okay.
You can't save something for later. What you can do is look at the characters and the situation and say, okay, what would happen next? So if you're telling a long story, there may be something that just won't fit in this book. You won't get to it unless you skim on, I don't know, a war, the death of a monarch or something. You can't get to the next thing without slighting that thing that should be properly told. So that you could save for another book. But when you have the chance to write something, you should go all out. You should try and entertain your reader and tell the best story you can with what's right in front of you. Worry about tomorrow, because guess what? Tomorrow will come until the day you're not in it. There will always be a tomorrow. So tomorrow will look after itself. At least that's the way I've done it, and 240 books later, I'm still doing it. So I just do one thing at a time. Sometimes I do 8 things at a time, but I worry about whatever's right under my fingers at the keyboard right now. I can't worry about other things.
Nice.
Anybody else?
I agree with that. I think you just have to tell the very best story you can every time. Trust that if you keep trying to do your best, the good stuff will keep flowing.
Nice. All right, then I'll follow that one up with, how satisfying is it to be able to, you guys have come together, you've accomplished the Sundering, it's over now, and to get all the great positive feedback you guys have gotten for the stories you've told and how the Realms is now moved from 4th edition to 5th edition, and everyone's excitement and passion about moving into 5th edition with the Realms.
Oh, I'm going to start calling on people.
Come on, bro.
Let's not always see the same hands.
Come on, Troy.
All right. Well, I think it's immensely satisfying. But being a writer, one of the things that happens is that you're not obviously all the time privileged to the marketing data and the concrete measures of how well your project is working. So I'm kind of sitting here still kind of saying, hey, did it work? Did it work? And, I'm beginning to get the feeling that, yeah, it did work, and that we accomplished what we hoped to, and that people are excited about it. But I guess I don't know what the numbers say, so I'm hoping that they're good.
That's a weird thing too about writing a novel. Is like we're done with it, 6 months or more before it comes out, and so then you're on to the next thing, and you get this feeling before the next book comes out. You're going, nobody's talking about my book. It's been done for so many months, and I haven't seen anybody say anything. They must not like it that much. But it's like nobody gets to. It's not there yet. So there's a weird delay.
Yes, I found that too. Somebody is earnestly interviewing you about a book that just came out, and you're thinking, that's 6 books ago now. All these detailed questions about the story, and you're going, oh, yes. What did I write again?
Oh, yeah!
Have you ever had the time when somebody's asking you about a book and you don't remember where the story ended in that book because you're about 2 books beyond that, even though it's a new release? So I'm like, what actually happened in this book? And where did it stop? Because
you don't want to spoil the next book. You're like, but you're thinking about that one.
Speaking of that, Aaron, somebody has a book coming out real soon. There it is.
This one?
There it is.
Up on my doorstep. My poor UPS man had to haul in so many boxes. Look how fat that book is, people. That's bang for your buck.
Bigger too, from what I hear.
I'm not gonna say.
Yeah, I'm a little bonkers. But like Ed said, you can't hold back if that's the story you're telling.
And now we know how you get all those words down. It's scary.
Exactly.
We use some of the same words again.
So this was kind of cool. Jim Zub, who is the writer of the upcoming D&D comic series, Legends of Baldur's Gate, was here. I don't know if you're still here, Jim, but if you are, very cool to see you. And He was thanking you all for your endless inspiration. And then, this is another question. Bob, sorry, I know you had questions too, but these questions are too good. For those of you who are playing or have played D&D, which I'm assuming is all of you, this person, Steve, has been wondering how those wonderful characters you developed, if they are actually inspired from your D&D games or your D&D characters. And Aaron, I know that you and I were actually having this conversation over email a couple days ago, so
Yeah.
I know yours is.
Burrito was actually started life as a character I had in a 4th edition game. And I actually just recently gave my character sheets for her to Ed Grabianowski from IO9, who started a Tumblr called Great Characters. And the link is on my Facebook page if you want to check it out. There's a lot of really, really cool characters from different authors and designers and other such luminaries. That player character, doesn't have a whole lot in common with Farida in the end, because in the process of creating the book, you kind of go, well, this story would be better if the main character was a little younger, because this is sort of an origin story. Okay, this story would be better if she were not quite so bitchy and more, optimistic. This would be better if she had an infernal pact instead of a fey pact, and so on and so forth. So it's funny because, the character you build for a game has the goal of, being fun to play. And it doesn't always work when you transfer it to a novel, so you end up stripping out a lot of the stuff that doesn't make sense anymore. Am I the only one that did that?
No, I
try to keep my gaming separate from my writing, honestly. There's only a couple of characters, usually minor characters, that I've actually played in a game. My gaming group won't let me play Dritz. They say it's too much of a munchkin. I agree. No, so I try to keep it separate. I do steal anecdotes from games sometimes and put them in the novel, but generally speaking, I don't go that route at all.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I keep the gaming mostly separate, although I get a real creative charge out of playing the game that translates directly into writing, even if characters and events don't necessarily translate. But I did have one character, Jack Fleet, who I actually played in a campaign, must have been 20 years ago when I was young. And he obviously is a main character in the Erebus Gale trilogy. He's a halfling priest thief of Brandabaris.
I've never brought a character over from a game to a book. That may be because I so often get trapped into being the DM instead of one of the players.
Yeah, I haven't brought a character over from a book that I can remember, at least not intentionally.
And I have had to play, at the behest of TSR and later Wizards, Elminster and a lot of other characters that began as non-player characters. I've had to play them in game sessions, for charity, at conventions and so on. But by and large, no, I don't take events from a game or characters from a game and put them directly into a book, because it just doesn't work as well. You want to tell the story in front of you, not tell what happened at a play session that people who are reading it weren't at.
Yeah, just as a side anecdote, I did a charity game for Extra Life last year, and one of the sort of prizes was if I raised a certain amount, I said I'd write a short story based on the game. I am still trying to finish that, because it turns out that was a dumb thing to promise, because there's no arc to a game. I mean, there is in a sense, but it's not the shape of a short story. So you will get that, I promise. I'm going to do it. I'm working on it. But yeah, don't do it. I mean, just in general, it's not a one-to-one thing. You're going to have to make a lot of changes,
I do think Erin makes a good point. She says that, I haven't brought any specific characters over from games, but when I'm gaming, there are certain things I notice about the characters. They're going in certain directions, so some of those characteristics might find their way into a character that I'm writing in a book, if it seemed to be working. So it's not as cut and dried, I think, as I made it out to seem. But as far as direct translations, there have only been one or two minor characters.
So speaking of minor characters, that was another question actually that somebody had asked. if you guys have any minor characters, I'm going to kind of paraphrase this, but maybe we should just ask the question the way the person asked it. There we go. Are there any minor characters that you've written that you would like to explore in more detail in future books? Like, any characters that just kind of surprised you as being a little bit more interesting than you thought they were going to be, or they have a bigger story that they want to tell?
All of them.
Oh.
No, I fall in love with my characters. And I'm talking even the minor characters off to the side. I have characters that have showed up in the books. They were supposed to die. When I did my original outline, this character is going to make it out of chapter 2 and get it in chapter 3, and 7 books later, there she is, still along. It's almost like Tracy Hickman's Killer Breakfast. As long as they entertain me, I let them live. But it's I mean, right now, I put some characters off because I'm going to convince Wizards to let me do a couple of books that aren't Dritz-centered, because I really have a couple of characters I want to explore. A monk with the weird name Fafrenfair and Spider Paraffin, to name 2. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I want to.
But sorry, Troy, you go.
I was going to say I have every once in a while my character will just kind of come out of the blue and then live for a while. And one of the characters from the Sentinel, Peox the goat, is going to make I think an appearance in most of the other books that will be happening. So yeah, definitely the minor characters take on a life of their own and turn into major characters sometimes.
And I have always done that with minor characters in the realms from the beginning, because the minor characters don't know they're minor. They're just living their lives. And if you go back to a place like, say, the Royal Palace in Sazeo and Cormyr, or Shadowdale, or any of the other dales, or a particular tavern in Waterdeep, it's always nice to have the same tavern master or stable hand who was in 8 or 9 books ago, even if they just get one line. Oh, good evening, my lord. And the people who read 8 books ago go, oh yeah, we're back in the stables. I remember this guy. So it brings the world more colorfully to life, and it also reassures me that it isn't a lifeless backdrop where everybody freezes, the lights go off, and dust settles on them, until the heroes walk on, and the lights come up, and everybody moves and walks and talks, and then the heroes walk off, and it all goes silent again. I want it to feel alive all the time, everywhere.
Bob, do you have any questions? I know that we kind of took over your moderating. I'm sorry. But if you want to get back to the questions you prepared, I'm sure we can do that.
I prepared questions? Person
Questions.
Yeah.
You did.
Sarah, would you like to
I'm out.
pull the marionette strings? No, I'm only I do have a question, actually, because I've always been curious about this, and strangely, I've never asked it of another writer, but I get asked it all the time. Tell me a little bit about your writing process. We'll go in the original order again to finish up. How does that sound? So I'm going to throw it to Paul in a minute, but let me start with mine. I find, I do my best writing on an airplane because I'm afraid of flying. So I put my Bose noise reduction headphones on, and I crank up the music. It's instrumentals, usually George Winston or John Surrey, and I bury my face in my laptop, and I forget I'm on a plane. And I think one day or one month, I'm just going to fly back and forth to LA every day and write 50 books, try and catch up to Ed. But anyway, for me, it's a matter of isolating myself with my screen through music and headphones, noise reduction headphones. How do you do it, Paul?
Well, so I have a day job and 4 kids, which includes 2 10-year-olds, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I kind of catch as catch can to some degree. What helps me a great deal is I usually start out with a fairly detailed outline. And frankly, I just write out of sequence big time. So if something grabs me today that's towards the end of the book, towards the middle of the book, towards the beginning of the book, I'll just go ahead and write that scene, and then I'll sort of connect things back up later. That has occasionally created a problem for me when I get to the end of the book and have to string everything together, but I find that keeps me sort of moving forward at all times, which is the critical thing.
Wow, I absolutely cannot write out of sequence at all.
Really? See, I've written the end so many times before, because when I conceptualize a book, I usually conceptualize the end, which I always like to think of as this transcendent moment of awesome that you need to have in every book. And so that's the thing that hooks me, and so I'll write at some point, and then it's just building up to that.
Wow. How about you, Erin?
I work mornings. I have someone watch my 3-year-old son in the morning, and so I sit down on my laptop, and as I said, I tend to try to make myself focus, turn off the internet, put on that crazy program if I need to. I write a really, 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 really long outline. I write what is basically a really crappy first draft outline that's like 20,000 words long. And then I work pretty sequentially. There's a scene that really grabs me, I'll jump ahead, but I mostly go in order until I hit a point where I go, oh God, right back here I went off the rails and I have to go back and fix this. And then I'll give that whole big mess to my editor, and I'll say, here's basically everything I plan to change. I write my own editorial note, kind of. Here's all the things we plan to change. Then I'll go back and start fixing stuff, and then I get her notes and work with that, and sometimes I don't get to write the end until the final draft, but it's worked out so far.
I think, Richard, you're up.
Okay. My process is kind of mechanical. I write normally Monday through Friday, get up in the morning and have at it. I will start by polishing up the previous day's output, because that'll get me in the groove. And then I will know how many words I have to write that day to keep myself on a schedule, which is based on deadlines, either externally imposed or just I've decided this damn story needs to be done by such and such a date. And I will knock out that many words, and if I still feeling the power, maybe do a little more, but at least do that many. And when I've done that many, I have permission to quit. And I'm like you, Bob. I can't write out of sequence.
Do you find Monday is the hardest of the days because you've been away for 2 days?
God, yes.
Yeah. If I skip a couple of days, I feel like I'm starting over.
Do you not write on weekends? Do you take weekends off?
I take weekends off unless I'm on some kind of tight deadline where I've decided that I damn well better write on the weekend.
I'm kind of
on the weekend, my mother-in-law comes, and she's playing with my son, so I have nothing else to do.
Nothing? Come on.
Yeah, well, nothing else I want to do.
Take a nap.
I wish I was good at napping. I'm really not.
I just need to touch the story every day, so I will work a little bit on the weekends, but I don't have a word count. I just want to sort of either think hard about it, sketch some ideas, or write 500 words, something like that. But I find if I am at least touching the story over the weekend, I don't lose track, so the Mondays become kind of a nothing day.
And I have a day
Mr. Denning?
Very busy.
I tend to work really hard on the structure of the story to begin with. I'll do just basically a note of the shape of the story. Maybe 2 or 3 pages of this is kind of what the shape looks like. Then I'll go out and expand that into an outline, rework the outline several times until I'm really confident in it. Because if I'm not confident in the outline, I don't move ahead very well. I don't move ahead very quickly. And then as I go in to write each chapter, I'll take a fair amount of time to think through the chapter and what all the characters want before the chapter begins, make some notes about the shape of the chapter, and then I sit down and write the chapter. So I guess I do a lot of planning. And I find that actually helps me, because if I haven't done my planning, I don't feel confident of the story that I'm writing, and then I'll bog down. But if I know where I'm going, I tend to blow through it very quickly. And I work a lot. Get up in the morning and work until I can't really work anymore, and then I'll try to touch it at least a little bit on the weekends. Get up bright and early before anybody else, so that I can get a couple of hours in, just to make sure I don't lose momentum.
And I'm betting with 240 books, Ed, you work weekends.
I work all the time. I gotta have a day job too, and my writing process is different depending on the project. I do it differently if I'm writing poetry, or if I'm writing a play, or if I'm writing a short story, or if I'm writing a novel. And certain publishers require outlines, so guess what? I do outlines. But if there's one piece of advice that I would say that has worked for me, and take everything with a grain of salt, because we're all different, we all write differently, but I find it's, if you're working late and you're going to have to leave, break off working, do something else like go to sleep, it can be harmful to finish a chapter neatly. Mm-hmm. Either don't quite finish it, or finish it and start the next one, because it's always easier to pick up something that is unfinished. Whereas if you've come to a neat, logical ending, it can be difficult to start up again. But anyway, that's just what has worked for me. But the actual process of writing is different for every project. Has to be, because I'm doing them all at once. They're all different.
Do all of you folks, and somebody jump in here, do all of you folks know what's going to be on the next page, or sometimes do you find yourself writing the book the way the reader reads the book? And so you have to keep typing because you don't really know how it's going to play out, no matter what your outline might have said.
Yeah, I find that I'll develop the outline and be very confident in it, and that gives me the freedom to go other places. Because if I go other places and the character starts doing something unpredictable, if I've got a handle on the rest of the story, I know how it affects it, and then I can let them do it and give them the freedom to do it without worrying about am I blowing up my story.
Yeah, and that's when the story really comes alive, when the characters take off in unexpected directions.
I find that no matter how good I thought the outline was, I always, in the course of writing the book, realized that I proposed something that was stupid.
Me too. Like, why would I have suggested that they do that? They would never do that.
That is awesome. So this isn't. We are at 6 o'clock right now. So, or depending on which time zone you're at, we're concluding our hangout. But for those of you who can and want to just continue talking, we can do that. For those of you that have to go, we totally understand, and we appreciate all of your time, those of you who are watching and listening, and of course our authors who are participating. But there was a question, or actually a statement that came in that I think is a nice way to conclude this. It's from Air Marksman, who says some very kind words. I do not have a question, just a statement. Thank you, each and every one of the authors here tonight. The works you have produced have transported all of us into the lives of our favorite characters. Just very, very awesome, because it is no small feat, the works that you all do, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to come hang out with us. And I hope we get to do this again. I think this was fun.
Yes, this was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah, so,
commuting, yeah.
What was that?
This will save some cost in the commute and crossing international borders.
Absolutely.
Or maybe, maybe nothing can replace that.
Actually, Bob, if you don't fly anymore, it sounds like you're not going to be writing anymore, so Sarah has to keep putting you on airplanes.
We can't do this too much.
Yeah.
Well, I will be flying Monday to Portland to meet with my wife, to meet Sarah and Erin.
Yes.
I believe. And we'll be going to Powell's to sign some books and have some fun.
Yep.
Then we'll be driving up to Seattle. Driving.
We
won't get any work done that day. Can't write in the car. But anyway, we'll be going up to Seattle. Well, Tacoma, closer to Tacoma, to Fort Lewis, McChord, Joint Base Lewis McChord. Erin, be ready to get overwhelmed because
I'm excited.
yeah, that's a great place to sign books. It really is. And then we'll be saying goodbye, and Diane and I will be flying down to San Diego to do Mysterious Galaxy on Wednesday. I haven't been there in a few years. Anybody who lives in the San Diego area who has not gone to Mysterious Galaxy needs to immediately. It is an amazing, amazing store. Then I get to go up to LA for a few days and do a signing at Emerald Knights Comics, I think in Burbank. And then the Barnes & Noble in Huntington Beach. And then Sarah gave me the weekend off to hang out with my daughter and her fiance who live out there, and my son, his wife, and my grandson who live out there. So I'm going to Disneyland. And then Monday is Arizona University in Tempe.
Tempe. Tempe,
Yep.
yes, how do you say it? Yeah, Tempe.
And Tuesday, come home, fall down, say really, really nasty words about Sarah. And
Yeah.
don't worry, Shelly, I'll get you in there too.
I know. I'm used to that.
And then I've got the week off, and until Saturday the 25th, when I go to King Arthur's Fair in Connecticut. So, yeah, crazy trip. I get a lot of writing done.
That's why we do it. So what about that's actually we know about where Bob's going on tour and also doing some online blog touring this week coming up. But for the rest of you, if people want to find you or read more of your works or find out more about your works, where's the best place? Where are you? Are you on Twitter all the time? Are you touring? Are you sitting on your back porch with a margarita?
Someone asked about scotch.
Yeah, somebody was asking what kind of scotch you were drinking or are drinking.
Oh, that is Colonel E.H. Taylor's small batch bourbon.
Oh, very nice.
And I'm drinking water, Adam's Pale Ale. Sorry.
Cheers.
But I know, Erin, you have a website that you do a lot of blogging on. Erin, are you still there?
I think Aaron.
Did we lose her?
Well, I'll speak for Erin. Her website is slushlush.com, so you can go there and find her blog, and also she does some contests sometimes, so you can find her there.
I believe she's selling books signed, isn't she?
She is. She's doing an e-signing. You can still get copies of Fire in the Blood autographed. Are you back? Is she back?
Sorry, my husband FaceTimed me for some reason, and so my camera is acting weird. So I know how to fix it, but I have to quit my browser and open it again.
Oh, okay. It's okay. I was speaking on your behalf.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the topic?
I told him about your website, which I hope it's slushlush.com.
Yes.
Yep.
And just for the record, also in addition to the signings, we are having a release party for Fire in the Blood at AFK Elixirs and Eatery in Renton on October 16th at 5 p.m. until question mark. So check it out. I actually don't remember what it says. It says 5 p.m. to like late maybe. So show up when you can. Come on by. We have a
That's
fun.
open to everyone, right, Erin?
What?
Anyone and everyone is welcome.
It is a public event.
Great.
Okay, I'm gonna fix my camera now.
Okay, we'll see you soon. And then what about you guys, Troy, Richard, Paul? Where can people read more about stuff you're working on?
People can find me generally on Facebook. That's where I'm most active. I do have a Twitter account, but I haven't mastered the art of posting pictures there yet, so my tweets tend to disappear as quickly as they appear and don't draw a lot of attention. But Facebook is where I'm most active at.
With me, you can. Facebook's probably the best place to find me, but I'm also on Google Plus. I'm on Twitter. I'm waiting for them to condescend to give me an LO account, and basically any place you look for me, there'll be a link to one of my occasional blog posts or one of my occasional columns for the Airlock Alpha site, whenever I get around to doing one.
I'm at paulskemp.com, and on Twitter I'm at Paul S. Kemp. On Facebook I'm Paul S. Kemp, and I tend to swear a lot, so, you know.
Thanks for reining it in tonight, Ben.
I know, I'm impressed with all of us.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
And I hang out at theedverse.com and occasionally on Facebook. And one of my longtime players posts and fields questions for me at Candlekeep, the forums at Candlekeep. And yes, the next time I will appear in public will be at Gamehole Con in Madison, Wisconsin in early November. Check it out. It's on the internet, gameholecon.com.
Very cool. So somebody asked, one of the questions that came up was, how does it make you feel when you see people at conventions, speaking of, cosplaying your characters? And I noticed at Gen Con, Aaron, there was a lot of tieflings walking around.
There were actually 2 gals who I took them. They were drow last year, but they were tieflings this year. No, they were trying to dress as Frida and Havilar, and they told me they went to price out a glaive, because you can't be Havilar without a glaive. And they found that it was, $300 to buy a glaive. So they told me this year, they're doing metalworking classes, so they're going to make their own glaive.
Wow, that is dedicated.
Yeah, I know, right? So next year they will be officially Frida and Havilar. This year I was like, I don't care, you're a tiefling spellcaster, you're a tiefling fighter, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, they look great.
Right? It's like people are passionate about what you did enough to make these really elaborate costumes.
That is very cool. And Bob, I know we see a lot of drow wandering around. That's feel good. That's not an easy costume to pull off.
I mean, I had seen the occasional drow over the years. The first time was in the early 90s. They showed up at the book signing in Willimantic, Connecticut, and scared the hell out of a couple of old ladies. It was really weird, but it was great. What really hit me was when I was at Dragon Con a couple of years ago, and they had this huge parade with like 3,500 people in the parade. And I was sitting on the back of a Mustang in the parade, and like 20 dark elves showed up behind me with a banner that said Darkened Facade, and their outfits were just amazing. The makeup, everything was just perfect. And then at Con this year, we ran into a couple of groups of drow, and I just got some pictures on my Facebook page of a drow group in Quebec City. So we will take over. It's only a matter of time.
I don't know. Aaron took a couple of your followers there.
Yeah, they are heretics and will be put down.
I think they showed up the next day in their drow costumes, to be fair.
Wow.
They love everybody's weird.
It wasn't to be fair, Aaron. We threatened them.
All's fair in love and cosplay. Have you ever dressed up as your favorite characters from novels or books, or do you do any cosplaying? Any of you?
Yes, I dressed up as Elminster when asked. I put on the fishnets and done Storm.
I dressed as Havilar for sort of. I played as her for the Extra Life 24-hour D&D game last year.
Oh, cool.
And one of the things I unlocked with a certain number of donations was I went out and bought like tiefling horns and wore them for the whole game. But that's as close as I've gotten for that.
Comfortable.
I don't think I've...
Bonk Rodney.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I was saying I don't think I've ever dressed up as one of my characters.
Or anyone's character? Dritz? Elminster?
There you go. Just everybody dress like someone else's character next Gen Con. It'll be great.
Or that can be our next
weird.
Yes,
that's what we'll do for the next hangout.
You have to show up.
What about you, Shelley? What do you dress up as?
I'm not. I know. Not doing it. Not doing it this year.
Come on, Wizards has the best Halloween parties.
That is
What's the best outfit you've worn at a Wizards of the Coast Halloween party?
it is a big deal here at Wizards, but if you're not crafty like me and you people show up, like, they spend a lot of time making costumes, and year after year I would show up in, like, this kind of not very good costume. And I always by, like, 11 o'clock in the morning, I was back in my regular clothes because I was just embarrassed just walking around. Like, I just look like, I never had good costumes. No, my mom's great, but she's not a crafty individual, so it's just not happening. So this year I finally said, I'm not going to make myself feel bad. I'm just not doing it. Last year I bought a blueberry costume, and that was it. That was the end of my costume days. So thanks for opening that can of worms, Bob, because clearly I have some issues about
There's some wounding there.
We should have all dressed up for this. That would have been great. So next hangout, everyone can dress up. Aaron, tiefling horns.
Represent your characters.
Be
Back to
careful
that.
what you ask for.
Oh, that's true.
I think that's up
That's a whole
from
different kind of hangout.
a character from 50 Shades of Grey or something.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, no.
Is that just a dude in a suit?
Well,
Just wear a suit most of the time?
depends on.
He said he dressed up as the dude. Have you met Ed?
Back in
So,
the,
do any of you get any time to actually, I mean, other than each other's books, which we probably have dug into, but do you read for enjoyment, or does writing just suck the life out of actually opening a book and looking at words on a page? And if you are reading, what are you reading these days?
Oh, I feel like if you don't read, your brain just kind of starves. You can tell when you haven't read. I can tell anyway when I haven't read anything recently, because like my writing just kind of craps out, and I'm just not. It doesn't have as much life. It's like, oh yeah, it's been like 2 weeks since I cracked open a book. I've got Maggie Stiefvater's Raven Boys on my bedside table. I haven't started it yet, and I recently finished Throne of the Crescent Moon by Saladin Ahmed, and Ari Marmel's Hot Lead Cold Iron, which was really good. It's like a hard-boiled fantasy noir where the detectives like Faye. It's set in the 30s. It was pretty cool.
I still read. I can't read as fast as I used to when I wasn't writing, but I still do read. I'm in the middle of The Brothers Cabal by Jonathan L. Howard, which is like the other Johannes Cabal books. Quite funny so far. I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome.
I read quite a bit. A lot of different things. Mysteries, fantasy, history. Right now I'm reading Dirty Streets of Heaven by Tad Williams. It's a pretty beautiful book. The opening is especially wonderful. If you don't read anything else, read the prologue. A lot of books by my friends here on the Hangout, and I especially enjoy reading books by people I know. A lot of my friends had to sign autographs for me over the years.
And I work in public libraries, so I read about a book every 2 days, and I can't tell you about the books I'm reading most recently because they're unpublished, and I'm reading them to blurb them. And some things I'm allowed to talk about and sort of publicize, and some things I'm not. And sitting beside my bedside right now are 6 things I'm not. So.
So I'm totally like Aaron in that reading really sort of recharges me in a way and gets the creative juices flowing. When I'm reading sort of genre stuff, I tend often to revisit classic stuff. So, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Liber, that kind of thing. And when I'm reading not in genre, which is what I do most of the time, I'd read something, I don't know, Don DeLillo or Michael Chabon or Daniel Woodrell maybe.
I don't find myself reading as much as I used to. Not fiction, anyway. It seems to interfere too much with my own writing process these days, which is really kind of a bummer. I read a lot of fiction, depending on what perspective you're taking, but books about the world today and what's going on around the world. I just started Zealot, which is kind of eye-opening. It's a different way to look at history, I think. And I find myself going back suddenly to the poetry, to the Romantics, Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, which surprised me because I thought I had left that behind in college back in the late 70s, early 80s, but here I find myself going back to it.
So I thought this was kind of a funny question, but somebody did, Brian has asked, what are your main heroes' birthdays? And I guess that is, he says he wants to bake cakes for all of them, so he wants to know when they are. And I just thought that was kind of a funny question to, do they align with any signs on the zodiac? Do they act like a, typical Aquarian or something? Or what would the equivalent even be in Faerun?
I actually know this. It's funny because this is like the one editorial error that persists in Brimstone Angels, that I said that the twins would be 18 in Myrtle, but I meant Marpanoff because it was like the day, it was like the next month, and nobody caught it, but they sound alike, and so 30th of Marpanoff, which I guess is like October 30th.
Well, 4 of my 5 main characters have 2 birthdays. Welcome to the companions. But I can tell you that Dritz was born on July 11th, 1987. Real world.
Really? That's my son's birthday. Not 1987.
Come on.
July 11th.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go.
That's awesome.
You should have named him Dritz.
And it's Free Slurpee Day. 7-Eleven.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, even better.
So for Kale, for Aravis Kale, he doesn't know his birthday, and neither do I. But his origin story, which was published in Dragon Magazine 277, I think, and is called Another Name for Dawn, is when he kind of took on a new name and started a new life. And I guess that's as good a birthday as anything. And I'll be damned if I know what the date is, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Somebody will be able to dig that up.
I have no idea when my character's birthday is. I know how old they are, but I have not assigned them a birthday. So maybe I'll do that eventually.
Ditto. No idea.
Go through like horoscopes and figure out like where they fit.
Yeah.
And for all of them, Mercury is in retrograde all of the time.
It sure seems like that with some of them, for sure. Bob, did you have any other questions that were on your list that you wanted to ask while we have everyone? I know we're now pushing 6:30 or 8:30.
Not really. I think we covered most of them. So,
Let's see if we got any more there.
well, everybody's working on something now, realms or otherwise. I'm working on the Archmage, which is the book for next summer. So the Rise of the King just came out. Vengeance of the Iron Dwarf is coming in March, and the Archmage will be out next summer. So I'm finishing that up right now, and also working on some short stories, getting them in shape for publication in my Demon Wars world. Those should be out soon as well. But so we'll go down the line. What are you working on, Paul?
So I've got my next 2 Eggle and Nix books coming out from Del Rey next year. I don't know if both of them are coming out next year. Those are original world sword and sorcery novels, kind of like my homage to Liber in a way. And I'm also working on Lords of the Sith, which is the 4th Star Wars novel to be released in the new canon. So that's exciting.
Right.
Is that a Disney release?
I
mean, it's
no,
Del
I know
Rey.
what you mean. I know people are out there going, "Yeah, Bob, you tell them, goddamn Disney release." It is a Disney release.
No. Hey, look, they saved Chewbacca. I'm off the hook, dude.
Yeah, there you go. All right, fair enough.
But I'm just wondering,
It
is that
is.
under the canon that we're going to see going forward with Disney?
It is indeed.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, no. So I was honored to do it, and it's a Vader Palpatine novel, which is, boy, it's tricky to get in the head of those two.
Very cool. What you working on, Aaron?
I am working on the next Brimstone Angels novel, which I think we just decided is called Ashes of the Tyrant. So that's the next story arc thing. And in my copious spare time, I'm working on another novel, sort of secondary world, putting my Egyptology background to good use, hopefully.
Richard?
I kind of got on a kick of writing horror short stories, mostly Cthulhu Mythos stories, and so I cranked out a bunch of those, some of which have already found homes, and some of which I'm trying to sell. I've got a urban fantasy novel I'm trying to put together in my head, which, even though it's contemporary urban fantasy, is kind of a Tolkien parody. And I have people who keep telling me I need to write the third volume in The Imposter, which is my post-apocalyptic superhero thing, so I need to get on that here fairly soon.
Hey, quick question for you. What's this ape of the day thing you do?
Which one? Oh, Ape of the Day?
Yeah.
That's just my...
I go on Facebook every day, and there's the ape of the day from Richard. What is that about?
And that's just my weird attempt to have people to make a point of looking at my posts. So once in a while, when I put up a post that's that's a plug for a book or something, maybe they'll see it. I just find an old comic book cover or still from an old movie or something, or an old pulp magazine cover featuring an ape, and then I think of some dumb joke to make about it as the fun fact.
I look forward to it every day, really.
Thank you.
What are you working on, Troy?
I'm working on several projects. The only ones I can talk about are the. I hope I can talk about them. I don't think I can even give the titles yet. Are the sequels to the Cleef books? The sequels to the Sentinel, which I have, through a weird process, I've outlined the second and the third books very thoroughly. I've been enjoying them and looking forward to getting those done. But I can't talk about the other stuff yet.
And Ed?
I'm also working on a ton of stuff I can't talk about yet. This last week I was writing my 21st Kickstarter short story of the year. As a stretch goal, none of them are my Kickstarters. And the things I can talk about are coming out next year. In the late spring, there'll be The Iron Assassin, a steampunk novel from Tor, a gaslight ROM. How's that? And the next Realms book that I'm writing, which is called Spellstorm, and is not about what you might think it's about.
Well, we're keeping busy. That's good. And I guess maybe on that note, we should let you guys go back to working, or sleeping, or whatever. Cosplaying, putting together your costumes for our next Google Hangout. I'm not really kidding.
Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell.
Nice. This has been really, really fun, actually. And now I know that we can see each other anytime. I feel less lonely now.
Well, thank you for putting this together, Nate.
Yes, Nate, thank you so much for your help.
Yeah, this was great. Whenever I reached out to you on your Facebook page, I had no idea the snowball this would turn into. So yeah, getting to meet Sarah and Shelley and all of the authors, yeah, this is great. Hopefully this is well. Welcome to Google Plus, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, Nate is a new father right now. Your baby is just a few days old, and he's still helping us with this.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you know what causes them now?
No, listen, it's a proud tradition. That first story summit, Paul and I had to call in because we both had newborns.
Oh.
You make it work.
We had them on mute the whole time.
I mean, I keep looking for storks outside, and I can't figure out where they keep coming from.
Very strange. And Bob, I don't know if I knew that Katie got engaged. Why are you keeping?
Well, it's not official yet. Shh.
Oh, all right. I was gonna say.
Way to ruin it. No, I'm only kidding. I said her boyfriend, not her fiance.
Oh, did he? Go back and watch the tape.
Preemptive congratulations.
Well, there's many. Forget it. Never mind.
Well,
We'll stop there.
I'm sure I'll be the first to know when it does happen.
I doubt it.
All right.
I'm hoping she will be, or he will be.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thank you again.
Thanks to Revan and Drew as well.
Yeah, thanks guys for hanging out with
We'll
us.
see Revan and Drew on Thursday nights.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We can't wait to talk to Bob on Thursday.
I think I answered all the questions tonight, right? You're just going to transcribe it? Talk to you guys Thursday.
Nice try, Bob.
Hey, I got to keep trying. It makes you feel like you're doing a really good job at forcing me to be there all the time.
Thank you. I appreciate
Put up that fight.
that.
Good night, all. I've got a Grey Goose martini waiting for me, and
Sounds fabulous.
another 1,000 words, and it's late here.
Yeah, it's late. Dinner time. Let's eat.
Take care, all. Bob, thanks for moderating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, all. Good seeing you all.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
And
Bye.
so